Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Undisputed, less than a month to go. Two fights that I wanted to cover that have been added to the card, two heavyweight fights I should say. Lawrence Okolie versus Kevin Lerena. And also you've got the rarely seen Vlad Sirenko returning to the ring. First fight under Frank Warren, facing Novytskyi. So we'll come to that second. We'll start with Lawrence Okolie and Kevin Lerena. Both these guys former cruiserweights. Both these guys having also dipped into bridgerweight, I should say, in the WBC. Lawrence Okolie atop the ranks in the WBC. He's looking to make some noise, and let's face it, this is a big step up at heavyweight, at least, for Lawrence Okolie. So going to his resume, he's only had the one fight so far at heavyweight proper. I'm not counting Lucas Brzezinski at bridgerweight. So he's faced Hussein Muhammad, nice gentle entrance into the heavyweight division, but that was last year. So he's been out of the ring for a decent chunk of time, was meant to fight earlier this year, but was injured, was meant to be facing Richard Riakporhe. Again, that would have been a former cruiserweight versus a former cruiserweight, and now you have at least made a former cruiserweight facing a former cruiserweight. So perhaps this is all part of the plan and the way that they're going to step in the heavyweight division, get an opponent who's not too big or dimensions, that are too crazy, something that he can have some control over with his length, because obviously Lawrence Okolie much taller than Kevin Lerena. And as we know, he's got those long arms which he uses. That's why they call him the octopus. So Lawrence Okolie, Kevin Lerena, I kind of like it though. We saw against Daniel Dubois, Kevin Lerena, if you're not careful, he can hit you, he can hurt you, he can drop you. And what we've seen so far from Lawrence Okolie at heavyweight is not a lot. And obviously he's packed on quite a bit of beef at heavyweight. He's got quite slender legs, so a lot of the weight that he has been stacking on looks like it's gone in the sort of midriff region, and he has taken a little bit of criticism for that, and he's sort of bitten back at people. But I think a couple of fights, he'll find what is a sort of ideal weight. For someone who's, 6'5" or so, somewhere around 240-ish, 245 pounds, probably is going to be there or thereabouts. What was he for his last fight? He was 260. Okay, I didn't remember it being that much. That's too much. I mean, especially considering his legs are very wafer thin comparative to the muscle, the bulk that he carries upstairs. But I could kind of see this fight being one where Okolie, using his length, trying to maximize his advantages, and when Lerena, who's going to have to work to the inside to get most of his best work away, tries to get close, I could see Okolie doing his octopus routine, trying to tie him up, trying to spoil. Look, Lawrence Okolie is a master at that. He'll have a fight or two where you kind of go, yeah, he can be exciting, and then he'll go back to his old ways where he ends up being a guy who can stink the place out. We've seen plenty of that from Lawrence Okolie in his career at the various weights that he has been at, especially cruiserweight. But he can be a very dangerous fighter, and obviously good punching power, but he hasn't fully acclimated yet, I would say, to the heavyweight division, but this is one of those fights that's meant to get him there. So Lawrence Okolie against Kevin Lerena. I make Okolie the favorite. Lerena, as we know, he can punch, he can drop guys, he can hurt guys, but against this caliber of opposition, we'll have to see what he can do. The version of Daniel Dubois that he fought, and when was that? That was back in 2022. That version of Dubois was a much greener version. I think Dubois certainly has been on he's been on a meteoric rise since then, and obviously a few wobbles and the sort of knee issue that led him to being unsteady and then getting dropped and all that sort of stuff. But actually, you haven't seen much in the way from Kevin Lerena in terms of big results at heavyweight. So he did have that loss to Justice Hooney in 2024. Did hurt Hooney late on, and obviously that was a bit of a foreshadowing moment to Fabio Wardley hurting Hooney quite late in their fight, just as Kevin Lorena did in their fight. But apart from that, it's been a little bit quiet. And I think for the last one, that Sergey Radchenko fight was at Bridgerweight. So, yeah, I'm not crazy about Bridgerweight and all that sort of stuff, as you know. But I think Kevin Lorena at heavyweight, decent fighter. And I think this goes rounds. This is going to be a hard fight for Lawrence Okolie, who hasn't really done a lot at heavyweight. And these guys aren't boiling down, and that's got to be an advantage, I think, for Kevin Lorena. So, and if Lawrence Okolie is in 260-ish shape again, there is the potential that that could catch up with him. It was never going to be a factor against Hussein Muhammad, but he did look very heavy set, upper body versus sort of very slender legs on the lower end. So, yeah, 260, too much. I mean, 240 to somewhere to 250 is probably more the range, but we'll have to sort of see with Lawrence Okolie and how he acclimates. But going from, what was it, Bridgerweight, 223, and then going up to 260, what's that 37-pound difference? That's crazy. And a 60-pound difference from the Billum Smith fight from... that's not that sort of controlled sort of going up sort of and doing it sort of very deliberately. I mean, it feels like he's just chunked in a lot of weight. And he was, a little bit hefty round the midriff, as I mentioned. I don't want to keep going on about that, but he was. And the other fight on the card, so you've got Andrei Novytskyi versus Vlatislav Serenko. Serenko signed with Frank Warren about a year or so ago, maybe a little bit more. And actually, it was just a couple of weeks ago where someone actually came to that video where I sort of did a video on him signing with Frank Warren ages ago and said, look, what's happening? He's done nothing. It was Frank Warren holding his career back. Not exactly sure because Serenko on his social media, the various clips that he does post, he had been training. It wasn't exactly clear what was going on with him, but his career certainly in more recent times, the last 2 or 3 years, has stalled out. I would, just on what I know about Serenko, I've seen far less of Novytskyi, would be picking Serenko to win this one. But yes, Serenko, very... sort of pretty record at the moment, 22-0, a little bit bloated. He sort of got to a point where the best of what he was starting to do, had that good fight against Konstantin Doboshenko, got a good win against Kamil Sokolowski. Then there was Ustinov where he starched him. He was faded as anything in 2021. Also stopped a washed Andrei Rudenko. But 2020 to 2021, where other careers were basically stalled, his was actually going pretty well. It's after that it really has sort of just fallen off. Guys that he shouldn't be facing. Some of this sort of the last couple of years has been absolutely dross. Couple of fights, or these 3 fights in 2024 in Texas, but there was a gap where he wasn't fighting for the best part of 3 years, and it's a real shame, or 2 years or so. So a real shame for Serenko, and just lost all momentum. Signed with Frank Warren in 2024, and this is the first time that he will be fighting for Warren on one of his cards. And obviously it's the undisputed card. I'm sure the whole Ukrainian tie-in with Usyk being the undisputed champion, that certainly helps. Who is he fighting? He is facing Andrei Novytskyi. He's 29 years old. I know far less about him, but he is the taller guy here. And, not a lot on the record. Do recognise Sean Lockery. He faced Michael Hunter some years ago on the Triller deal that Hunter had. It was about 4 rounds or so. Hunter stopped him, went the distance with Novytskyi here. Not a whole lot on the record. Even some of the journeymen, not exactly... Juan Torres, that's a name. But yeah, some of the other stuff, there's not a lot of note there. So you do have to ask the question, how good is he? It's kind of unclear. But you've had Serenko being pretty inactive, but I think just on the name and I think what I've seen of both, I would favour Serenko going into this one. And he certainly needs a good performance to get back on track. Some of his other compatriots, who are coming up in the heavyweight division at the same time, Oleksandr Okolie, they had similarly sort of, stop-start careers. I think it caught up with Okolie a little bit. Serenko, he needs to get back on track now. And now is go time. 30 years old. He can't afford to be having, 1 year, 2 year gaps in his career at this point. Otherwise, the best of his prime will just pass him by. So picking Serenko to win, not sure in what manner, but, who knows? He might be a bit rusty. I'll pick him to win. I'd like to say stoppage, but a win is a win. And in terms of the other fight, Lawrence Okolie, I think this is one where it's going to be competitive. I think Lorena will pinch some rounds, but I do think it will be quite messy. Probably a very Lawrence Okolie octopus style fight at times, especially if he's trying to tie up Kevin Lorena and make sure that Lorena isn't getting some of the best work away. But Lorena can fight on the inside a bit, so Okolie's going to have to be careful, but he does tie up well, and that's the frustrating thing. He does tie up well and spoil very well. Picking Okolie to win this one as well. I think I'm going to pick this one by decision, but wouldn't be surprised if it was a knockout. Lawrence Okolie and Vlad Sirenko for the wins. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.